Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Santa Monica, California, United States of America. Today is June 26th, 2021. June 24th, a little ahead of myself, June 24th, 2021. Today is the final live stream from Los Angeles. If I may take my time, it's a two-part sharing. One, a little story to set the context, a slight preface, and I would like to read a section, the closing section from my book, Extinction X-Rated. They're all interwoven. The theme is never give up. Push on. Keep pushing on. Challenging as it may be. Allow me to start by saying I'm in the house of my beloved deceased friend, Bob Chardoff. I'm here based on the unthinkable generosity of his wife, Jenny Chardoff, whom I married, he and Bob, in 1990. Intimate allies, intimate friends. Bob and I traveled to India and Burma. He is best known for his philanthropy, his heart, introducing meditation and mindfulness to Hollywood, inviting me to his home in Malibu way back in the day in the early 1980s after I had left Burma. And we became deep soul allies. I learned a lot from Bob. I can't even begin to share the power of that communication, that communion, mentor, friend, ally, brother, teacher, beloved. I am leaving the house of Rocky. He made the film Rocky. He made 39 feature films. The Right Stuff, They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Strawberry Fields, New York, New York. So many profound feature films. Bob was a consummate storyteller, a provocateur, a man with a green thumb and a wide open heart, generous, caring. I learned so much from him, from his family, from his relations that he generously introduced me to: artistry, acting, storytelling, screenwriting, communicating. He championed the very best in me, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Creatively. It has been determined that this home of Bob and Jenny will be sold shortly. The last resident, me, alone primarily for nearly a year here, out of choice and out of lockdown in this city. And many of you know that I chose to embark upon a creative endeavor, never intended to be a book. I sat in this room. This is Bob's study. These are his books. His Thangka, his Buddha in Burma. The house is filled with the artifacts and the images of his choice and Jenny's choice. I've been gifted to be in this ambiance. I've made friends with the hummingbirds, the squirrels, the roses, the flowers, and you. I could not be who I am today, Ubuntu, without the support of people worldwide who've been supporting me in these provocative months post-diagnoses of what has been called and labeled as an acutely enlarged ascending aorta aneurysm, the largest heart in the body, the largest heart or largest artery leaving the heart. And it's expanded to the point of what they use in medical terms of dissection and or rupture. And I have chosen here over the last 3 months to enter this process with eyes wide open, with deep, poetic, careful pragmatism. And I am leaving here in the morning, God willing, to the island of Maui without electing to undergo this radically invasive and highly complicated open heart surgery. I've been vulnerable for days. Maybe you have too. Crying and stuttering and being hesitant has been something of a daily occurrence. I only see you for a few minutes, but it's very much natural to me at this point. And so if I begin to just do what I do, cry or feel or emote or just who knows what, I invite you to follow your heart. Today will be somewhat intense, deeply spontaneous. I chose and I'm choosing to read the final pages of this book, which are radically intense. The whole book is radically intense, but it's meant to challenge the violence deeply embedded in the genome of human God consciousness. Where does this evil come from? And as a radically committed, nonviolent, existential, rebellious activist, I said literally, how could I live and die with the best presence to confront injustice and evil and the devil itself? And I did it in this book, proud of it. Thanks to Bob working through the spirit of this place. I feel him breathe in his home, intuiting his guidance throughout the book. And for those of you who know, the context was to be here. A year ago I arrived, decided to, what will I do with the preciousness of this time? Can't travel and feel. And so I had, over the years, a deep sense of that I had lived my life. And again, if you're of the faint-hearted, you always have the choice to tune out. It'll only get more intense. But I had mindful euthanasia on my mind for several years, and more actively here in the house of Rocky. I deeply considered taking my own mindful transition to the next plane of existence, and that's a whole other esoteric topic. It's not a morbid process. It's like I am done with the human incarnation. There's a very large part of me that felt that and still feels that. And I'm looking in my heart for that sense of radicalized hope. Why pursue time in the future? Yes, I want to be near my precious loves, my friends, my daughter, the archetypal inner, outer goddess lover. I want to make love with existence, but equally I've lived well. I'm an adventurer. I've chosen from a very young age to, for right or wrong, to give it up. I've made mistakes. I've hurt people. I've been hurt. I've bled. I've cried. I've thought of suicide so many fucking times throughout my life, and yet I fought back. Bob would always tell me, never give up. Isn't that really the Rocky? Whether you like the movie or just obsessed over loving it, but it's a mystical Rocky movie, mystical, existential Rocky moment for me, and it's been that way for the last several years, and more so writing this book, because I sat at this table, I sat in this room, in this house for nearly a year, contemplating mindful euthanasia with a syringe of morphine and a high dose of LSD, and I made the commitment at the end of the evening that I would make a decision on which crossroad to take, either mindfully transition or live into the future, whether it even be for a day. This book is 12 hours in my life in that process. I want to read the end, and it's titled Never Give Up. But I would like to start with a story that happened in Paris, France, in 1996. I had been escorted to the airport in Burma after spending nearly 5 months, 6 months with Aung San Suu Kyi in her home. After her first 6 months or 6 years of house detention, met all of her colleagues, and then I was thrown out of the country and essentially blacklisted for the next 17 years. But I returned to Paris, where my publisher of this radicalized set of conversations that are found in the book called The Voice of Hope, and also in our more recent books, Burma's Voices of Freedom. I was based in Paris, living, in fact, in Bob's Paris apartment that had been given to me to live and to conclude the editorial process and the delivery of these epic conversations with Aung San Suu Kyi and her two colleagues, U Tin U and U Chi Mang. And so much was learned in the power of active loving kindness, active compassion, active democracy, active freedom in action. And I thank you all for your own mystical Dhamma Rocky existence. And it's so ironic, here it is, 25 years post Paris, and my allies are either dead or have been killed or imprisoned, like Aung San Suu Kyi, being paraded before the world in this mockery of democracy with the satanic terrorist former General Ming Online. It's just pure Orwellian sickness to see this evil debacle on the world stage, and the impotence of the United Nations and elected leaders. I could go off on it, but I've said enough about that. It's my moment right now, and I want to share with you my final live stream here from the House of Rocky, Paris, 1996. I had just heard that my beloved friend U Win Tain, Aung San Suu Kyi, one of her chief confidants and advisors, who was instrumental in organizing my regular weekly, multi-weekly secretive dialogues with Aung San Suu Kyi and U Tin U and U Chi Mang and others in her compound. Quite a process that he and U A Win navigated. I found a diary of my time, which I will probably leave in my will. I had just heard that he had been arrested and radically interrogated and tortured. And it just crushed me. And I left my flat late at night, which I often did, and I walked the streets of Paris, walking to relieve the outrage, the horror. And incidental as it was, as darkness descended, I was robbed and beaten near a subway that night, late at night, and I made it through. I'm not the story. But in the morning, I decided to do what I often did, was to go to Notre Dame Cathedral, which was very near to my flat. And I had studied medieval cathedrals all throughout college, and I loved Notre Dame. I knew its architecture, I knew its history, a majestic place to contemplate, to write, to meditate. And I went there brokenhearted that day, deeply brokenhearted, like today. And just thinking of the torture he's going through. And I cannot help but pause. And here it is 25 years hence, and the torture and the evil is even more unremitting than before. And yet again, U Wintane at 80 years old has been incarcerated in a wheelchair without his medicines in an undisclosed prison somewhere in the Naypyidaw region. It's like, what is this earth, this planet, the machinations of this totalitarianism and oligarchical profit privilege, guns and nuclear weapons and rape and bioweapons and pandemics and pornography and evil and propaganda. And it's like, enough, there's enough. I just want to run to that sacred trans-Rumi-esque, Nibbanic-like Ubuntification field of trust and safety beyond this earth plane. I don't know about you, but I have done my duty here, and I'm not quite ready to give up. And I remember crying and praying and meditating, hearing a woman in English, a tour guide, which was not uncommon, talk. And I could hear her in my ear about Notre Dame. And she was talking about the stained glass and the buttresses and so many different interesting things. And then she spoke about the conception of the Grande Madame, something like 800 years before. What was it? 1032, 1086. And there it was, 1996. And I'm thinking, wow. And I'm an artist, you're an artist. We're visionaries. We do our best to look into the future and take the ground from our soul and create things that illuminate the sky for the children and the birds. We are poets, we're writers, we're lovers. We enjoy the pain of transformation to make good on the promise of our conscience and dignity. We're yogis, we're meditators, we are human. And I thought, wow, what imagination it would take to conceive of this great cathedral that would take 800 years to complete. And I imagined maybe you could go there with me. Back in the day, I'm at a table somewhere in Paris, and I had a vision. And I sketched it in my book, like I sketch here often in my book. I sketched it. It was like some idea of a cathedral, but it was metaphorical of the release of the divine feminine, okay? And I wanted to put it within the most artistic, creative, spiritualized, trans-religious walls. I had a vision. Are you with me? You have a vision. And all of a sudden, you think to yourself, my God, that is so epic that there would be no chance in my lifetime to even probably see the foundation dug into the earth. 800 years? And I'm thinking, oh wow, I can't do this alone, right? Ubuntu, I cannot do this alone. And so I'm calling out, as I've done in my book here, I'll read to you, my samsaric sangha, the beloved women and men all throughout the different dimensions of existence. Some of you I don't even know, but I feel like I'm in love with your spirit, your body, your mind, your poetry, your grace, your goodness. That's my samsaric sangha. Those people who want to do the special things and not play it safe, but play in the comfort of the conditioning of angst and struggle and projection and doubt and the repetition of history. But they want to break the chains of those conditioning and release. I'm not saying be free totally, but just release for an hour or two, a month. What will you create, think, sing? And so here in the 11th century, I have all of my samsaric sangha, my savants from the Paris, coming to me with my candles and my dope and my music and my rad and my preface and my elevator pitch and my all the things that I want to do to so-called business plan my great vision, right? And you could feel them all coming in from their different sectors. And they're looking at me, okay, Alan, we love you, we trust you. We've got a busy day ahead. What's your vision? Imagine you there at that table. What is your vision, political prisoners? What's your vision in insane prison? What's your vision anywhere you are in the world? What your vision, boy and girl, in any country, any city, any town, any school, any refugee camp? Isn't life about supporting visionary behaviors? And yes, that little temperate place in me that says, be practical, be balanced, steadfast. Do your Tony Robbins gig, man, and just manifest step by step. What about uber rad? What about killer poetic? What about unglued? All the ways in which you go like, fuck, man, I just want to sing my song to the highest decimal. No one's listening. No one's going to listen to you, Alan. No one's going to support you, Alan. You're just too radical. You use too many expletives. It's too much. It's too intense, dude. All the ways in which you just don't speak up. And so I'm around that table and I'm thinking of my friend U Win Tain being tortured in the gulags of Burma. What's in his conscience, even today, 25 years, and what's in his dignity, what's motivating the soul of his conscience. And I begin to explain my vision of Notre Dame to my team of people, my dream team, and someone says, well, what will it cost, Alan, to get it off the ground? I don't know, but I'm looking more for the emotional alliance of bonding with the vision rather than the cost right now. I haven't gone down that, but it's a sketch. Can you see it, Alan? You need an accountant and someone who's done business before and built cathedrals. That's a big work, And when you get that kind of business plan done and you get your accounting, come back. I love you and your visions are always great, but take care of the pragmatic and then call me back if you don't mind. And then someone else says, well, how long will it take, Alan? I said, Jesus Christ, time isn't part of the equation. Well, do you have an estimate, a guesstimate? 100, 200? 100, 200 months? No, more like 3, 4, 5, 700, 800 years. You know where we could go with this, right? Think of the evolution of culture and society, the evolution of music, the evolution of dance, the evolution of dharma, the machinations of the humanoid, of the earth, billions of years back and gazillions and trillions of years forward. the vision of the grand cathedral, the grand divine feminine released into the radiance of this outrageously toxic existential environment with these evil shears and machetes of murder. Where did all this rage come from? And the cathedral is about timelessness, about peace, about love, about harmony, about unity, about radiance, about luminosity. Alan, you're just a dreamer. Too much acid, dude, back in the day. I say maybe get a soapbox and go down to the center square and put out your little bowl, and maybe someone will give you a few dollars. You've got a great voice. I like your poetry, but a cathedral, no. Too long. Okay. Imagine, though, but those who love us, Alan or Summer or Janine or Carol or Bella or Sophie or Martina, Lindsay, Catherine, Marcia, Mary. I want to quit my job. No, I'm going to work double time and help support Carol, because she's going to quit, because she's a good artist. She can teach others how to make brushes and go to the flowers and take out the special pollens and grind them and make the paints. Just think how much time is involved in creating one pane within one window of the stained glass in Notre Dame. And it could have been a whole lifetime of apprenticing on how to paint stained glass. And I'm going like, whoa, think about the lifetimes of a Buddha. Think of all those tears in the oceans and all those bloods that's been shed in the name of liberating ourselves from greed, anger, and delusion. Time, circumstances, vision. My brothers and sisters in Burma, back in 1996, fighting the good fight nonviolently within conscience to confront totalitarianism. Well, that was my story back then. Notre Dame, a vision. I lived 25 years from that point to today, up and down, over crevasses, into avalanches, clinging through base addictions to the survival, hurt and trauma, moments of incredible joy and play, stage settings around the world, spiritually incorrect books, the magic of films, my relationships with lovers and friends and sisters and brothers and allies and families, the birth of my beloved Sarabella Clements Earl. Way back in the day in 2006, the greatest gift of my life and the greatest challenge up to this very moment. And here I go, flying on a jet plane with a negative COVID test to the island of Maui, where I first went in 71, tented with my partner at the time at Baldwin Beach. And here it is, 2021, going back to Kula, where I've had this gorgeous cottage based upon the incredible angelic support of my ally Summer. And I will rest there for days and hours and weeks. I don't know how long, but I'm really looking forward to the arrival and to the creation of this 3-day non-residential globalized live streamed gathering, July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. You're all invited. I'm going to dive deep into the visionary essence of my being with those few people who want to come out for the different sessions each day. You're invited. I look forward to communing with you. Reach out to the organizer, Karen Jeffries, through email. If you know Summer, communicate with her. She'll tell you. And if not, globally, tell your friends. Let's do something radically special around that table 800 years ago in Paris, right? We're visionaries. What are we going to create? What are we going to do? How are we going to feel? Okay. Thank you for tuning in. Halfway through. I'd like to read now another epic moment of walking down those sidewalks in Paris and being beaten and maced and going to my Notre Dame. I came to Bob's House of Rocky based upon his beloved wife, Jenny. The invitation, Alan, abide in the sanctity of this space to live and to create. And so I chose to do what Bob and I did well. He really empowered and loved my outrageous asymmetrical style of story sharing, poetic telling, co-creative, cinematic, radical language oriented, pull out all stops, straight talk. This book is way high poetic straight talk. And I'll read something at the end here. It's not the most intense, but if you're lighthearted, just spare yourself and either tune out and come back for the retreat on Maui. I don't know that it'll be any lighter hearted, but I'd like to read a section here and allow me a couple of minute preface to the section. You know about my relationship to Bob. You know about my relationship to being here for nearly a year. You know about my deep, deep question at the crossroads of my life. Should I live? I took 500 milligrams of acid with a syringe of morphine, and at the end of the day, if I wasn't clear about why to live, I was going to take my life. Obviously, I'm still here. I'm not convinced. I am not convinced, but I'm going to give it everything I possibly can to get on that plane and to get off that plane and to get to Kula, to do the retreat and to really feel and to think and to meditate and to commune and listen carefully to the steps of my own soul and where to go in the next iteration of my own life in this journey. I want to be with my Samsaric Sangha. I want to be with the next Buddha, Maitreya. I want to be in Tavatimsa with the boys and girls who I've been journeying with from time immemorial. I want to attain the Pali word arhantship, full enlightenment, the overcoming of greed, anger, and delusion. I want no part in evil, in violence. This book was dedicated to that. So I'm at the end of the book, and it's a radical, radical process. I am this close to putting that needle of morphine in my arm. And here I am in the House of Rocky, listening to Bob throughout the day. Essentially that encouragement of just stay with it. There's no obstacle, mental or emotional or physical, Alan, that you cannot challenge and overcome and integrate into the betterment of your future. You have every right to struggle. Flaws are sacred. Rise up, never give up. The mystical Rocky in each of us. That's what I was listening to that day with Bob. Also Harriet Tubman, the great Black American underground conductress who fled the white gulags of the Middle East Coast of America, where I grew up, on plantations of horror and evil, and fled to Canada and had a moment of conscience that said, although I am free, my brothers and sisters are unfree. And she went back to the plantations, and she then encouraged her black brothers and sisters who had the courage to follow her to Canada, to freedom. And she said that fear was so prevalent that one would be captured and tortured, like my friend U Win Tain and Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and other political prisoners around the world. She kept a revolver in her hand and kept it close to the head of those who doubted that freedom was preferable than fear. Don't turn back. Never give up. But it took a pistol to their head, and they walked on to freedom. That was a driving metaphor for me and an image in my own life. the collective scientists in Chicago who have created what's known as the doomsday clock, looking at all the variables scientifically, environmentally, economically, from nuclear war to bioweapons, to the terrorism of the electricity grid, to manufacturing lines, to the increase of heat and global warming, to the interruption of the food supplies and grain production, to the acidification and the plastification of the oceans and in the air. We're in this death spiral on a planet with our species. There's no ambiguity about that. Climate collapse and environmental collapse and economic collapse. It is, if you look at it, and this book is about it as well, it is so radically clear that it's like, I have been diagnosed with a catastrophic illness, and without radical open heart intervention, the likelihood of death is right in the high category of certain. But every one of us clearly, and I know you know this, but let us state the obvious to our own heart, around that desk table 800 years ago in Paris, sharing our vision, we're all mortal. This heart is a heartbeat away from death. Every breath is conditioned by oxygen, organs, blood, stating the unthinkable obvious. We must stand and feel in relationship to that truth, but never give up. And so, let me read, and I invite you to hear it as it was intended, to the best of your interest and ability. It was meant both literally as a story, but equally symbolic, of which is found in the Indian and the Tibetan Buddhist literature of Asia. The mandala. Many of you know Carl Jung used the mandala to talk about the symbolic wholeness of consciousness and existence, from deep, deep, deep dark to luminous light, and the gradations of those two dualities found within the human mind and the human heart. You know, as Dostoevsky so famously said, beauty and mystery, beauty and evil are fighting, and the battlefield is the human heart. All of us have the dyads of good and evil, right and wrong, love and hate embedded in our own mind. And the spiritual journey is obviously to challenge the darkness and to elevate the light. Well, the mandala is the symbol for that. And the book is a literary mandala of my own war on consciousness. Not an aggressive war, but a tenacious, empowering, ever-increasing, courageous struggle to overcome the forces of fear, of terror, the prediction of pain, the loss of life, the loss of loved ones. It takes, to state the obvious, an enormity of courage. So allow me to read. Again, this is my final live stream from LA. God willing, the next will be the global virtual retreat from Maui, July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. 2 sessions a day, 10 to 12 and 1 to 3, both in person as non-residential participants. My first outing with human life, and I'm really looking forward to that. And equally digitally around the world. Tell your friends, let's communicate and connect. The reading. I've fought hard here in this room to survive. This is the end. And it's called, it's a bad design. It's a common phrase I've used over the years. And there are 3 short sections to the end of this book. Allow me to read. It's intense. Here in the house of Rocky, with Harriet Tubman's gun at my head. I'm communing with my dream team of freedom fighters. This is around my metaphorical table in a deep candle-lit chamber in France, conceiving of my vision after a long struggle. I'm with my dream team of freedom fighters, calling on the collective imagination to fight the monstrosities of militarism, electrification, and the murder of nature, all life itself. Three of the main reasons for the apocalypse that we are in right now with the death of nature, based on industrialization and the fetish of human consumerism. With the cold barrel of human-generated extinction pressed firmly to my brain, my war with samsara took on a new urgency. Either you walk to freedom, Harriet demanded, or you die here in cowardly gloom. Rise up, Alan Bob reminded me. Midnight is coming soon. Hit Armageddon with all you've got. Give evil a knockout punch. I felt Socrates burning with Martin Luther King's, quote, sacred rage, and I screamed out at the supremacists in the world. Fuck your hemlock. Fuck your thought control. I'll call upon any force and deity and use any language I want in the cathedral of my own conscience. I'd rather burn, I say, in full public view with my tongue cut out than be a passive martyr in your sick totalitarian play. As Brother George Orwell said, for every record destroyed or falsified, for every book rewritten, for every picture repainted, I'm addressing head-on this cancellation culture, which is too mild, and the denigration of free thought and free speech, the perpetual lie, the pornography of Wall Street, and the white supremacist oligarchs in Silicon Valley, and the Davos Great Reset crowd. It is on us. Xi Jinping, Hong Kong, Burma, Apple News, 500 police arresting all the editors and published in Hong Kong several days ago, and now closed Apple News in Hong Kong. Desecrated freedom of press and imprisoned freedom of conscience. The march of dictatorship is on. This book was finished several months ago, and it's gotten so much worse. As Brother Orwell said, for every record destroyed or falsified, for every book rewritten, for every picture repainted, for every statue and street building you rename, welcome to this new rebranded far leftist America, and for every date you alter, I refuse to be your faceless puppet and will commit every thought crime possible. Yes, U Wintane. Yes, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Yes, 5,200 other political prisoners in Burma. They dared to commit thought crimes and thought out of the box. They had a vision of their great Notre Dame called democracy and freedom and universality of human rights, right? Are you with me? And to confront your inhuman attempt to control the collective mind. My freedom is not yours to take, and my death will be my choice if I so choose it. And fuck you, God, force-feeding us your sociopathic world. It is sick. One rape, I've said, is one too many. Translate that. If that girl in Somalia is your daughter, it's an evil sociopathic context. With your theologians telling us to pray, have more faith, go deeper in meditation, be more mindful, consult the stars and cards and shamans and therapists for guidance along the way. All for what? To be raped, manipulated, and murdered and made food for maggots and worms? You tell us to change our socially conditioned, brainwashed way of life, to slow down. I'm screaming at God here if you're wondering. to slow down, become more aware, and decolonize consciousness. You mock us for our expansionism and our domination of nature. What did you expect? You give us a small, green, infinite sphere called Earth spinning in an inhospitable darkness. And on it, force us to cohabitate with wars, viruses, bugs, reptiles, and primates that murder and kill. And then you treat us humans like slaves, codependent on programmed impulses to sleep and eat and shit and fornicate and kill, hate and rape. Every breath requires you, God. Look at the history of civilization that you puppet. Endless wars and massacres, along with your cruel mockery of our biological limits. The land is saturated with the blood of your madness. And you tell us to figure it out? That it's our karma, our ignorance, our inheritance, our social dilemma? How dare you speak in tongues about our shortcomings and our sordid fairy tales of oneness and endless evolutionary growth? You scripted an Earth careening at high speed into the wall of your apocalypse, God, not ours. Yet you keep gaslighting us with your divine creation mantra, which is more like a dark theater of horror than a sacred garden of honor and delight. And you just keep telling us to work it out or die again and again and again in your perverse world of heaven and hell until we cease our programmed proclivity for domination, stupidity, religion, and war? What did you expect us to do? Become radicalists, burn bridges, blow up dams, assassinate sick leaders, swim with the whales and dance with the bears, break sacred images on the altar of your perversity, sabotage the electricity grid, refuse to work, create one huge off-grid international community, lace the reservoirs with acid and hope, call for global acts of civil disobedience to stop extinction, immolate ourselves in the halls of power to defy your death wish for us all? Why such a psychotic context? Well, guess what? You're wrong, God. It's a bad fucking design. It's a psychotic cosmos, and you know it. As Brother Malcolm X said, and I agree, we must act in self-defense. God, you're a sadist, a Hitler with a fetish for death cults. As Winston Churchill declared, you were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war. Now remember, this is a mandala, a literary mandala. The radicalized spiritual journey of the Bodhisattva to confront evil, rape, my Win Tain, my Do Aung San Suu Kyi, my Malcolm X, my Martin Luther King, my Gandhi, my terrorist, all of us in this invenerating causality of good and bad. The mandala, the unification, the heart of the goddess of the Buddha. The next short section. It's called Scream. The war is on, I said. The fight is so crazy. This book was published 2 days before I was diagnosed in the emergency room with this acutely enlarged ascending aorta aneurysm. I didn't have any clue. 2 days it's published, and the whole time for a year I'm thinking about, should I live or die? And I thought I had it bad and challenged I had no idea at the time that Burma would be under this evil military coup, that my friend Aung San Suu Kyi would be imprisoned and U Win Taint imprisoned. And then this challenge of life and death with the so-called diagnoses of a ticking bomb within my own heart and chest, and the fragility now. And yet, I hear you, Bob. Fucking never give up, right? Isn't that the edge that we're all on in this great sixth extinction that we're all in this cosmos of infinity and quantum fields of dimensionality that allow us to kiss and to touch, to feed each other, to orgasm, to walk, to meditate, to conceive, to give birth, to dream, to envision, to feel, to play the theater of the absurd, to do radical performance art that interrupts the unthinkable conditions of banality and predictability and repetition of conditions of self-judgment and self-blame and shame. Break out the tears of authenticity. Oh, wow. Scream. The war is on. The fight has begun. I refuse to participate in your universe of aberrant atoms. Your laws are lawless. And I took this from Carl Jung about individuating. Until you look into that which you revere and see that what you see as wrong and evil and don't make it a part of you, you can never be an existential, rebellious savant. You've got to individuate. It's not the unification of opposites. It's like, oh wow, that mirror is a reflection of me, but I refuse to participate in that part of me called you. Got to let go. Relax. The war is one of nonviolence, to integrate, but not to collude. I dropped to my knees here in Bob's house of Rocky and summoned a final call. And I thought it was final then. I summoned a final call to the great goddess of compassion, buried deep within my heart. I fear that I'm just it's crazy, that I'm channeling my own destiny of soon-to-be death. It's all been written. The script of the future has already happened. I'm walking with eyes wide open into the future, as you are, of our own individual collective mortality. But is it already over and never give up? I dropped to my knees in Bob's house of Rocky, and I summoned a final call to the great goddess of compassion buried deep within my heart. Through the tears, I asked her, please give me the strength, dear lady, to remove the diabolical DNA of domination animating through me throughout this torturous wheel of life. I want a world without war and hunger and fear, but it feels like an impossible dream. So with you, my love, as my sole witness, I must take my life tonight. So close at that time, just as Socrates did, and die in dignity. The fight with samsara is a bleeding illusion. It's over. I have given my shadow my best shot. The victory is in conscience, not form. I walk to the bow of my inner being, and thereupon our earthly Titanic. I sat cross-legged for a final moment before self-immolation into peace. And here I offer you, life, a final prayer, a hymn, a scream, before emptying the syringe into my arm. Here is my acoustic suicide note, shared with the emptiness of a bad dream. Life has died today. Goodbye. I had no reason to believe the lies. Life died today, and so have I. Not in form alone, but in everything. As in no trace, no legacy, no memory, no spirit, not even that. Not even zero, nothing. And we once lived, fought, killed, loved, fucked, denied, warred, ate ourselves with ruthless death love. And so what? Life lived and killed itself until all memory was engulfed by heat death. And now, nothing. Not a whisper, a murmur, a memory, nothing. Not you or me or history. Not even silence. Nothing. Such was life we knew all along, but refused to agree on the rights of living and fighting and loving and fucking. Nothing. But nature. Life taking life. No blame, nothing. A big fucking astrophysical vacancy of nothingness thunder. Not even a murmur of life once lived. Nothing. Not even that. Not even that. I tied the band around my upper arm until a vein appeared. As a final act of mindful presence, I slowly lowered the needle closer to my arm. And just as I was about to enter the skin, I paused and felt and listened and teared until a calm, strong voice intervened, saying, "No, Alan, don't. This is Francesca, Ava, Mai. Let's have a heart-to-heart. There's a better way to go out than this. Defy fear and sing, Alan. Hear the music in your soul before you take your life. Feel it as a pure vibration and sing out to the heavens, calling out to our fellow inhabitants spread across infinite galaxies and in every dimension of existence. Sing out, Hey Jude. She's found you. No, go and get her. And remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better. I'm with you, Alan. Let me into your heart. Let love fill your entire being and trust. Trust in our love and the existential rebel in you that refuses to give up. Even now, standing on the bow of our earthly Titanic, you ask, is there one true action in the face of death? Is there a single enlightened deed to be done to either escape or to prevent societal collapse and mass extinction? Look what I did before I was taken out in a blaze of Nazi fury. I ask, what will you do? Go inside and feel us too. Drop into the multiplicity of intelligences animating through us at this very moment. Now, occupy as many of them as you can, Alan. Feel these Dhammas illuminating everything known and unknown, everywhere seen and unseen, large and small, and feel our love too as boundless. Feel into these vibrating fields of energy, Alan. Nature, samsara, life, and me and you and us right now in union together with the divine feminine in all of us. Trust, Alan, Francisca is your guiding metaphor for your return to love. She is your Notre Dame, your archetypal lover. I am Avalokiteshvara, the next Buddha to be. Now be the mother, honor her, Alan. Every being enters the world through the woman's womb. Be the lover, be the goddess, the giver, in breath, out breath. Oxygenate this love, Alan, with your mindful intelligence. Trust in the rightness of the divine feminine. Trust in the Dhamma laws and principles that govern this timeless tapestry of interrelated mystery. Trust in love. Commit yourself, Alan, to unconditional love and engage life with small daily acts of resistance, regardless of time, context, circumstances, and attachment to outcomes. Hear yourself, Alan. Life is to be lived. Life is hope made real. Life is love. Hear yourself, Alan. And now dedicate yourself again and yet again to this love and move forward with the courage to do everything in your power to remove from the genome of your own mind and being, from the very cosmos itself, every proclivity to harm, denigrate, and violate oneself or another or it. Commit yourself, Alan, with me to a life of existential rebellion until we reach the deathless, the timeless, unconditioned nibbana, the one and only true extinction, that of greed, fear, and delusion. With an upsurge of energy revitalizing my courage, I heard the voice of my sacred Dhamma teacher, Sayadaw U Pandita. Alan, how would you face extinction? You asked me. The same way you have meditated for decades. Remember those 2 books you read that you brought to Burma at that pivotal crossroads in your life nearly 50 years ago? Remember Ram Dass, Be Here Now, and Mahasi Sayadaw's practical instructions on Satipatthana meditation? The how to be here now and develop insight along the way. Be present with what is right here and now. There you cultivate vipassana, insight into the true nature of all conditioned phenomena. Anicca, impermanence, anatta, emptiness, dukkha. Well, you know enough about the truth of suffering. So we don't need to bother with that right now. Just be mindful not to blame others for the way you feel. Transform the dukkha, the suffering in other words, into reconciliation, into the freedom beyond us and them, beyond Republican and Democrat, beyond Democrat and totalitarian, beyond all divisions whatsoever. Also, be kind, be loving, be generous, give back, be forgiving, be self-honest, and most of all, remember the essence of freedom in your day-to-day life. Neither wish to live nor fear dying. From that place of non-grasping, while always inspecting your authenticity for cracks, act on behalf of the greater good. And as your dear friend Bob has told you so frequently, never give up. Thank you, Bob. That's right, Alan. I'll tell you a final time myself. I love you and never give up. Okay, the final short section of Extinction X-Rated, written here in the house of Rocky in Bob's house. I'm leaving tomorrow. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, my dear beloved friend Bob. Thank you for allowing me to channel your incredibly poetic, radical, spiritualized spirit. Thank you, good forces of nature. Thank you, hummingbirds and tangerines and the squirrels and the roses. Thank you for the people in my life who fed me and housed me and supported me financially. Thank you, thank you, thank you, good people. And I want to come to a close here on this final eve in the House of Rocky, paying tribute to all of you who are in my life, and especially to Bob and Jenny, for the gift of this sacred temple. I will never return here. This house is transitioning. And my Buddha Gaya, my memory in honor of Bob and this House of Rocky, and for the betterment of the future of life. The final section, titled after Bob, Never Give Up. Alan, Buckminster Fuller here. These are part of my samsaric sangha. You'll remember you were with me as I lay in state as a dead man in Cambridge, Massachusetts, back in 1983. I lived in the house where he was lying in state after his passing. I was given the house to stay in after having been a monk. It was an amazing moment. Very near to your place of birth. I was born in Boston, in Brookline. Remember what I said before I passed on? People often say to me, I wonder what it would be like to be on a spaceship. And I always respond in the same way, Alan. You don't really realize what you're asking, because everybody is a mystical astronaut. We all live aboard a beautiful little spaceship called Earth. And if the success or failure of this planet and of human beings and all other species depended on how I am and what I do, I ask the questions, how would I be? And what would I do? And I invite you today, Alan, to bring these two questions with you when you wake each morning, along with a third question. When will you do it? Alan, it's Mom. I love my mom. She passed away a few years back at 96. Alan, it's Mom. I've been with you all day today. And I'm with Dad and Seda U Pandita and Bob and Ava Francisca Mai and everyone else you've ever loved and learned from in your countless lifetimes in samsara. We are all here in my Sangha in Tusita realm. You too will be born here soon, and you both will reunite. Before you arrive, you have some final earth work and heart work to do. Remember what I told you before I passed on. Slowness is everything. Take the speed out of your life, Alan. Especially now with the pandemic and mass extinction on the horizon. Slow way, way down, my beloved son. There's no hurry to get somewhere in order to die. Remember the wheelchair I was in when you last visited me in the nursing home before I passed away? You'll remember I could not even move the wheelchair because both of my hands were gnarled and painful with arthritis. Someone had to do everything for me, feed me, bathe me, change my diaper, get me out of bed and put me back in it. You are young compared to me at that time. You have so many good years in front of you, and you are so healthy compared to me. Go out into the light, Alan, and look up. Run wild. Return to nature. Yes, life has its darkness, but keep lighting candles. It's only light that dispels the darkness. You know that. Use your life wisely, son. Live, love, and laugh. It will not last, and remember, slow it way. Take your time when you eat and drink and make love again. And slow it way, way down. Be mindful. Use your intelligence. I love you. Love yourself. And Alan, all of your friends are here with you, and we keep saying and we keep screaming at the atrocities until we all turn back that fucking clock and bring down totalitarianism, human supremacy, nuclear weapons, the human death march of consumerism, and mass extinction. We'll never give up. We are with you. Alan Fergus here. As you know, we've been unstoppable friends and colleagues for so many years now, and how blessed I am to be seen by you, to co-author books together, and to serve as your assistant for nearly 2 decades. I've been turning into you all day, waiting for this moment now to share my most soulful truth with you. We are alive, Alan, because we have a sense of meaning. We do not get it from the BBC, CNN, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Q of QAnon, Oprah, Deepak, Freud, Terry Pratchett, Tolkien, Putin, Premier C, or anyone else. So how could we lose it through their bankruptcy? We get it from our Dharma practice. We get it because we feel the living, real world presence of the ongoing mystery. We know that by now we are almost unstoppable, and that we've had both the courage and fortune to pursue things we think mattered and made a difference, rather than earned us any safety, security, or company. There is no force in the world that can take away our sense of meaning, save a thorough and lengthy bout of brain-shattering torture. You must stay alive, my friend, for our work together has only just begun. If I may, before we close the show, a word from Aldous Huxley. Let me be straight, Alan. The brown shirts of the Fourth Reich are everywhere today. I said it back in the day, and it never had more importance than now. It is perfectly possible for a person to be out of prison and yet not free. To be under no physical constraint and yet to be a psychological captive, compelled to think, feel, and act as the representatives of the nation state want them to think, feel, and act. In other words, if you do not keep liberating your freedom will imprison you. And here the final page. Carl Sagan says, "Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known." And I say to myself, I recommitted myself to life today, and I'm going to do it again today on June 24th, 2021. I'm recommitting myself to life today. I invite you to do the same. And the courage to face whatever, come what may, and the courage to act for the greater good. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. Exodus 14:14. And Bob concludes the book, and a birth into the future, he says, and never give up. I thank you from my heart to yours for being part of this journey with me. I've been here for nearly a year, live streaming and talking, writing, communicating. I leave in the morning for the island of Maui, an unknown future. Please go on this journey with me. And I dedicate my work to the good people of Myanmar, to Burma, to Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, to my friend U Win Tin, to U Win Tain, to U Tinu, Uemong, all the boys and girls who are imprisoned and struggling at this very moment worldwide to fight totalitarianism, to keep the radiance of freedom alive. I want to conclude the series here in Los Angeles in the House of Rocky with a quote from my friend Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. She says, "Fearlessness may be a gift, but perhaps the more precious thing is the courage acquired through endeavor. Courage that comes from cultivating the habit of refusing to let fear dictate one's actions. Courage that could be described as grace under pressure, grace which is renewed repeatedly in the face of harsh, unremitting pressure. From my heart to yours, thank you. I hope to see you down the road, and may the best still to become. Thank you.